All right, so this is absolutely breaking news coming in over here. This is a landmark move by the government to rationalize the tax structures in GST. There will now be two rates, as a result of which the overall goal is to really kickstart consumption in the country, take it to the next level. And so many items are going to be cheaper. Before I bring in my guests, what this essentially does is it encourages consumption at multiple levels. It helps the common citizen. It's going to be a driver for labor-intensive industries, farmers, agriculture, health. There'll be an exemption of GST, so no taxes at all on individual life insurance policies, whether life term, ULIP, or endowment policies and reinsurance. So as far as insurance is concerned, by and large, there is no GST tax element at all, right? So that's one part of it. But the primary sort of change in the structure itself is to move from a current 4-tier tax rate structure into a two-rate structure. There's a rate of 18%, right? By and large. And then there is a merit rate of 5%. And then there is a demerit rate of 40% for tobacco and a few select luxury items. Therefore, there is a reduction of GST from 18% or 12% to 5% on a host of common items. So what are we talking about? Hair oil, toilet, soap bars, shampoos, toothbrushes, toothpastes, bicycles, tableware. That's come down from 18% or 12%, depending on where they were, to 5%. There's a reduction of GST from 5% to 0 on ultra-high temperature milk, prepackaged and labeled chena or paneer. All Indian breads will see nil rate. So there's no taxes on chapati or roti, paratha, parota, etc. A reduction of GST from 12 or 18%, as was the case earlier, to 5% on almost all of the food items such as packaged namkeens, bhujia, sauces, pasta, instant noodles, chocolates, coffees, preserved meat, etc. And aspirational items, reduction of GST from 28% to 18% on air conditioners, TVs 32 inches, right? All TVs are now at 18%. All TVs now at 18%, dishwashing machines, small cars, so that's gone down to 18%, and motorcycles equal to or less than 350 cc. So if a car is less than 1300 cc, as I understand it, then it's considered a small car. Let's go across to Shashank Shekhar Gupta, Chairperson of the National Taxation Committee of Indian Industries, and Nasser Salim as well. Mr. Salim, let me come to you first. So this is huge. Does this meet your expectation? Do you believe this is going to take the economy to the next level, perhaps positively impact GDP growth, but more important than that, benefit millions of citizens for the most basic items?
Vishnu, overall the GST rate rationalization and restructuring effort will move towards a growth enhancing move because of the support it gives to consumption, demand, and the cost reduction to businesses by way of efficiency gains in the tax system. I think one of the clear things that as somebody in the industry that I'm kind of would want to kind of raise is on the government's intent to move towards a 2-rate GST and the demerit rate on select goods, coupled with streamlined input tax credit refunds, both on the most critical inverted duty and exports, which is clearly a move in the right direction and is required very much today, given where we are in terms of the Trump tariffs issue. I think the reduction of indirect taxes would also enhance affordability, Vishnu, boost consumption, and make essential and aspirational goods more accessible to more people, is what we feel. I think one of the very important points in the last few quarters we've seen, the earnings for corporate India have been very, very muted, Vishnu, and I think the intention behind this move, and if you see, right from the budget announcement, coupled with the RBI rate cut, the 1 lakh crore, revenue let off from the budget perspective, from a lower taxation perspective. I was in your show during the budget, and now to this jig of GST to boost consumption will also push up corporate India in select sectors to get a better earnings guidance and improve corporate profitability as well. So, it's a consumption, employment generation, and somewhat a production cycle that should kickstart and also reflect well on the earnings, which will add and should add to impact on a positive side as far as the GDP is concerned, and certain sectors more favorably than the others. So that's broadly, the sense that we are getting at the moment.
There is a lot over here for everyone. Farmers gain a great deal. Common citizens gain a great deal across the board. Also in terms of insurance, where you're not by and large taxed at all. It encourages people to invest in health insurance, life insurance, etc., etc. What is the larger sort of message over here? Is this merely a populist move? Or do you believe that this is something which is going to stimulate the economy? And do you believe that whatever it is that the government suffers by way of a fiscal quote-unquote loss, will more than be taken care of by the boost in consumption?
Vishnu, clearly, as far as the government is concerned...
Just half a second. I just wanted to take that to Shashank Shekhar Gupta. Mr.
Sure.
Gupta, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vishnu. And what I certainly believe is that this is a landmark move. This is something which is beyond expectations. To come so far from a country where we had so many indirect taxes in the history, to move to a unified tax and then to move to a two-tier tax rate, I think it's totally landmark. It is beyond expectations. As far as the revenue impact is concerned, in the shorter term, there might certainly be a revenue impact because we are seeing a very high change in tax rates from 28% to 18%. That makes a difference of 10%. From 12% to 5%, that makes a difference of 7%. Then there are also items who are moving to nil category.
Yeah.
That may be 5% or 12%. So in the short term, definitely there might be an impact. But I believe in the longer run, this is going to add to the treasury, to the revenue collection. It will spur economic growth. It will leave more disposable income in the hands of the population. It meets the aspiration. It meets the demands of the population of our country. And I think, especially in the present times where the global scenario is volatile, I think this totally helps in making us a domestically an economy which should grow with an insight.
It's interesting that the Revenue Secretary stated a number of 48,000 crores as a potential financial implication of the government taking the step. But then, and I want to repeat this, categorically said that this was based on statistics and numbers, I think, from 2023, 2024, and that the actual projected financial implication might not be that 48,000 crores, it might be something else. But that number of a quote-unquote loss, because he refused to be drawn in to the use of the word loss, needed to be seen in context, because he was absolutely certain that this was going to work, that this was going to boost consumption. Mr. Salim, would you like to come in on that? Because when people interpret all of this, they say, what is the loss the government is going to sustain? And his point is, it's difficult to define a number. I think you're on mute.
Vishnu, I completely, kind of agree to that logic to say that, we can't comment on the kind of impetus or fillip that this will, give to the entire consumption space. So, in order to put a perspective to a number will be difficult at this stage. But I think the premise, which is where economics comes in, to say that, listen, if you have essential goods and commodities, and if you reduce consumption tax, in this case, reduce those taxes, it will, increase in aspirational goods and consumption of those, which will ensure that a higher volume gets generated or a higher surplus or what should I say, a bigger momentum on the sales numbers start to show up. Thereby, your revenue loss on account of tax outflow, which you've let go, will come in the form of higher number or higher sales. Now that logic obviously holds true, Vishnu, but it's also a very thin line. I mean, we need to realize that there is a lot of money which is currently sitting on the sidelines. There are sectors which did really well in the last 4 quarters, but the last 2 months, last 2 quarters specifically, the last quarter, the results have not been very encouraging.
Sure.
We've had single-digit earnings as far as major companies are concerned. We've been hit by tariff impact hugely, and I think this entire prudence, or this balance rather, between tax GST cuts and hoping that this will give fillip to a more consumption, members of the public consuming more, is a logic which is walking on a tightrope, but is will fall in place hopefully, because there is a potential and appetite for more consumption now to get better, and also not to forget you're also moving in a lot of goods and services in the formalized sector.
Okay, one second, half a second, Mr. Salim. I just want to go back to Mr. Gupta. What is important over here is also another aspect of this. There is a demerit tax of 40% on a certain set of items. Tobacco items, gutka. This is obviously an important step which the government feels it needs to be done to ensure that the health of people is protected. But then there is also vehicles above 1300 cc, as I understand it, which is also something which is going down. So Shashank Shekhar Gupta, your thoughts on this demerit amount? I mean, there would be obviously some people who are not pleased about it.
I'm sure, sir, there would certainly be people who would not be pleased about it. But I think if we look at the demography at large, I think it would not make much of a difference. These products are already placed at such a high tax rate. Historically, they have been prone to such high tax rates. And going forward, I think what the government simply intends is to maintain status quo. The intention of the government is very clear. They want to make a change for the middle class. They want to make a change for the masses. But for thin items, for luxury items, the government intends to maintain status quo to ensure there is minimum impact on the treasury. And I think to that extent, it's a welcome step.
Rishabh Bhatnagar, my colleague, joins me as well.